Hey guys, this is my lecture on Jenney's chapter 5. So we're going to divide up the chapter topics into sections like we did for the other chapter topics. You may remember that in chapter 4, one of the primary topics was second declension nouns of the masculine subtype. So, for example, amicus, amici, right? That is a second declension noun. You can tell because it has that I that sounds like E in Latin, but the letter I, as we call it in the genitive, and it ends in US, so in the nominative singular. So amicus, amici is a second declension noun, and it is of the masculine subtype. You can tell that from two things. First of all, in dictionary form, it's going to have a little M after it, which means that it's masculine. And usually in the nominative singular, it's going to end in US or ER. Now, what we are learning today is second declension neuter subtype rather than masculine subtype. And there's a lot that's similar with second declension masculine. Most of the forms are going to be the same. Okay, so remember that when we're doing amicus, meaning friend, amicus, amici, the endings are us, e, o, e, orum, is, os, is. So amicus, amici, amico, amicum, amico, amici, amicorum, amicis, amicos, amicis. Most of those endings are going to be the same in the neuter subtype. The first thing that you have to notice is that in the nominative singular, instead of ending with a US or an ER, what the neuter subtypes are going to end with is UM rather than US. So a good example is bellum, war. Okay, how do you know that that's second declension? You know it's second declension because it's bellum, belly, neuter. That's what you'll see in the dictionary form. It's second declension for the same reason that amicus, amici is second declension. You can tell from the dictionary form because it has that letter I, pronounced E in Latin, as the genitive ending. So amicus, amici is second declension masculine. Bellum, belly is second declension neuter. Okay, so how do you know it's neuter subtype? Two things. First of all, it says neuter after it. It's going to tell you that it's neuter. Second of all, in the nominative, it's bellum rather than say bellus, right? It's bellum. So that um tells you that it is the neuter. So bellum, belly, the neuter subtype. Okay, so what are the endings in the nominative, in the singular, instead of us, e, o, o, the endings are e, o, o. So the only thing that's different is in the nominative singular, it's going to be um instead of us or er. Right? Now, in the masculine, the endings are e, orum, is, os, is. In the neuter, both the nominative and the accusative plural forms are the letter A, pronounced A. So that's instead of E, orum, is, os, is, it's A, orum, is, A, is. So notice that the nominative and the accusative forms in the plural are both the letter A, whereas in the masculine, it's the letter I in the nominative and the letters OS in the accusative, so E and os. So those are the only differences, only three differences. Neuter, nominative, and accusative are the letter A, and in the plural. And in the singular, in the nominative, it's going to be um instead of us or er, and those are the only differences. However, those differences introduce us to something which we need to know about all Latin nouns. All Latin nouns, no matter all Latin nouns that are neuter in gender. Okay, the same thing applies to them. It doesn't matter what declension they are. You haven't learned third declension. This applies to third declension neuter nouns. It applies to neuter nouns of any declension in Latin, and it's called the neuter rule. So topic number 1 from chapter 5 is second declension neuter subtype, which we've gone over. Topic number 2 is this general thing, the neuter rule. The neuter rule says that nominative and accusative, whether it's singular or plural, nominative and accusative neuters are always the same. They have the same form. So whatever your nominative singular neuter is going to be, your accusative singular neuter is also going to be. And whatever your nominative plural neuter is going to be, your accusative neuter plural is also going to be. They're going to have the same endings. And you can see this, right? The nominative singular of bellum belly is bellum, and the accusative singular of bellum belly is bellum. Similarly, the nominative plural of bellum belly is bella, war is subject, right? The accusative singular of bellum belly is also bella, war is direct object, right? So the neuter rule says that the nominative and accusative forms of any neuter Latin noun, whether we're talking about singulars or plurals, are always the same as each other. Okay, that's topic number 2, the neuter rule. Topic number 3 is accusative of place to which. Now, 2 things. We have seen the special use of the ablative of place where. So, for example, farmhouse is villa ville. And if you want to say somebody is in the farmhouse, then you say in villa with the macron over it, because villa is in the ablative, because that's how you express ablative of place where. You use the preposition in plus the noun that it governs is in the ablative. Accusative of place to which, you also use in, although you can use odd as well. Sometimes more rarely you can use sub, but let's concentrate right now on in or odd, which in this case means to or into. So here's the basic distinction. In, the preposition in, used with the ablative shows place where. So in villa means I'm standing in the farmhouse or sitting in the farmhouse. That's where you are. If you use in with the accusative, in villam, instead of in villa, it means into the farmhouse, right? So this is the place to which or into which. So if you wanted to say, for example, town is oppidum, it's second declension neuter. So there you would use in or odd, you would say into the town, in oppidum. If you wanted to say in the town, standing still, accusative of place where, you'd say in oppido. You use the ablative of it, but into the town, in oppidum. Or in oppidum or ad oppidum could mean to the town rather than into the town. The point is motion, place to which, rather than place where or place in which. That's the difference. Accusative of place to which. Okay, now kind of the reverse. We add the ablative of place where, use in for that most of the time, in villa, in the farmhouse. If you wanted to say not in the farmhouse, that's in villa, or into the farmhouse, that's in villam, but you wanted to say from the farmhouse or away from the farmhouse, that would be ablative of place from which, and you would use a or ab or de. Those are 2 prepositions, both of which mean from or from which. And those prepositions take the ablative case. So instead of saying in villam, you would say in villa, right? That's ablative of place where. Or in villam, that's accusative of place to which. You would say a villa, that means from the farmhouse. Or ab oppido, from the town. So, or de oppido, or de villa. So the idea is for a or ab, a and ab are 2 different forms of the same preposition. You use a before a consonant, a villa. You use ab before a vowel, ab oppido. This is similar to the English words a or an, right? So you say a banana, but you don't say a apple, you say an apple. So this is the same way that you use a or ab. Now notice that we've been talking about a bunch of different prepositions while we were talking about ablative of place from which and accusative of place to which, right? We've been talking about ara, we've been talking about de, we've been talking about in. So we need to think about prepositions in a more general way, because in this chapter, if you look at page 29 here at your vocabulary, you see there are a bunch of prepositions. So we need to understand something about how prepositions work and how you need to memorize them, how you need to understand their dictionary form when you're looking them up in a dictionary or a glossary and when you are listing them on my vocab quizzes. So notice that on page 29, the first things that are listed are all nouns, right? They have that noun form where you have the genitive singular ending, and then you have the gender afterwards, right? So bellum, belly, neuter, or n, meaning war, that's a noun. But then underneath there, going from a to sub, you have a whole bunch of prepositions. So the way the dictionary form works is, for the first one, say for example, ab, you need to list both of those forms. So if I were to ask you, how do you say from or away from? You'd say a, comma, ab, and then you put some parentheses, plus ab or abl, close parentheses. What does that mean? That means that the preposition a or ab always takes the ablative. That means any noun that it governs, or any adjective that it governs, is always going to be in the ablative case, because a or ab always take the ablative. So if you look down to the next one, ad, ad, which means to, toward, or near, you're going to write a or odd. Sorry, you're going to write odd, not a or odd. You're just going to write odd, parentheses, plus acc, close parentheses. That's going to be your dictionary form, because odd always takes the accusative case, meaning whatever noun or noun-adjective pair it governs will always be in the accusative. So the answer, if I say, how do you say to, toward, or near, is odd, parentheses, plus acc, close parentheses. And if you're using that preposition with any noun of any declension in Latin, anytime, you're going to put it into the accusative case, because odd takes the accusative. So you'll see that for all of the prepositions listed on page 29, it either says with the ablative or with the accusative, with two exceptions, in and sub. In and sub are two very unusual prepositions in Latin in that they don't just take one case always. They take one case in some circumstances and another case in other circumstances. They take accusative in some circumstances and ablative in others. So if I say, how do you say in, into, or against, in, or on, then you would say in plus ABL / ACC, or AB or ACC / ABL. The point is plus either accusative or ablative, and it depends. Okay, so that's how we would write the dictionary form for in and sub. You'd list accusative and ablative as alternative possibilities in the dictionary form. If you don't do that, then it's going to be marked wrong. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means kind of what we just talked about, that if you use in plus the ablative, it's standing still, right? So in villa means in the farmhouse, but if you use in plus accusative, it means into the farmhouse, motion towards. So you can use ablative or accusative depending on whether you're standing still or moving towards. Sub means under, up to the foot of, at the foot of, that kind of thing. What does it mean? This is a little bit harder to understand. What does it mean when you're using the ablative? What it means is more or less standing still under. So under doesn't necessarily mean directly under like this. If you have a hill here, under can mean sort of like at the bottom of or up next to, directly up next to. That would be under the hill, not with the hill on top of it, right? So if you had a town under the hill, it would be sort of next to it, nestled up next to it. And for that, you would use the ablative. Okay, but if you're moving up under something, or up to something, or going up to the foot of a hill, or going up to the wall of a house, and you're going to be nestled up under it, then you're going to use the accusative. Okay, so that's in and sub. Those are unusual prepositions in that they use both ablative and accusative depending upon the circumstances. All other prepositions in Latin use one or the other. So the rule you can think of for prepositions is, remember, prepositions take cases. Every preposition has a case that's attached to it that it uses for anything that it governs, anything that's in its orbit, in the house, under the hill, that kind of thing. And all Latin nouns take either accusative or ablative, with the exception of two, in and sub, that take both, sometimes accusative, sometimes ablative, depending on the circumstances. That is the grammar of chapter 5, and that's all you need to know. So what are the topics to review? Second declension in neuter subtype. That's topic number 1. Topic number 2, the neuter rule. Topic number 3, accusative of place to which. Topic number 4, ablative of place from which. Topic number 5, prepositions in Latin generally, the fact that they take cases, and the accusative or ablative. Okay, great. That is the grammar of chapter 5. See you soon. Bye.